Welcome back to the show. We got a great one lined up for you today. Additions, changes to the Clarity Act, ladies and gentlemen. We got everything you need to know. Advancing the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. And how about a $250 Ripple buyback? Oh, we got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $4.13 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 0.7%. Bitcoin 115,900 plus, Ethereum 4,400 plus, XRP is $3.03. We're up 0.5 on the 24. We're up 0.9 on the 7-day. Range of price right here between 302 and 306. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's start with this today. You're going to love the charts we have for you when we get out of here today. Right now, I want to tell you about Caleb and Brown, the crypto brokerage. They're absolutely incredible. This is what I've been waiting for since I got into crypto. No more worrying if I've been hacked, if my transfers went through, or if I set my market orders correctly. With Caleb and Brown, I finally have institutional grade custody for my XRP and a real person I can speak to with any time I need support. This is the part that I tell you is unmatched in this space. There's no question. The level of personal touch customer service on this platform is bar none like you've never experienced. You want to click the link underneath the video, or just remember to go to xrpwealth589.com and get started today. Open your free account. You are going to love it. Wow, my throat. So I am turning a corner, believe it or not. But here we see Digital Asset Investor highlights a post really quickly. Let me just, 1 second. I got to pause, clear my throat here. Okay, now we're back here. Whew. All right, so Phil Kwok from Easy A, shout out to Phil and Dom Kwok, who are absolutely crushing this space, talking about sometimes could be margin if price cut. Well, let's just go to the post here. So looking at this, would you borrow USD using your XRP as collateral? And then the conversation gets started from there. And then this one says, I mean, of course, why not? And then he says, well, sometimes could be margin called if price fluctuate or in downturn. That's the bear case. Just thinking if that would worry you, OFC could always just make sure the loan is small one to limit the risk of the loan getting called in, which is a great point as well. Um, I I am on this side. It is very dangerous to borrow against your XRP until we have more price stability, which comes with much more mature crypto market. Be careful out there. Know the risk before diving in. For now, the most important thing is to hold your XRP safely, in his opinion. Shout out to DAI. I completely agree with that. And I said, in conjunction, would you borrow USD against your XRP as collateral? I say someday when the market is more liquid with a much smaller drawdowns. Yes. And that's what I'm waiting for, is a much more mature market. And I do believe we're going to get there. I think Phil made the point too. Let's see if I can find that very quickly here, because it was a very good point. Now, Phil also made this point too. He said, very interesting. Some people want loans on their XRP, others don't, but they'd be happy lending out their XRP for a percentage return. And on both sides, as long as it's low risk, very interesting. Thank you to everyone who commented. And I absolutely love this summation here, because what it sounds like, it seems like we may have the problem, answer, and solution in our own backyard. There's those of us that don't want to take a loan against our assets, but there's those of us that would lend our assets to someone to take a loan. So I think we could find the problem solution right in our own community. I don't want to take the loan, but I'd put it up, to earn a return. So it's interesting, but the terms would have to be right, and again, not quite knowing just yet how deep liquid this market will be in the coming months and years. it's one of those things where I absolutely love this idea. It's the holy grail to never have to sell your assets, right? It's what the richest people in the world do, obviously. But it's understanding that you've put yourself in a position to win and succeed, and not put yourself in a critical position that could cost you your position in your portfolio. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So I think this is a great conversation to start here, and who knows, maybe we can all help each other in this space. Meanwhile, today is the day, ladies and gentlemen. We're supposed to find out today if the Fed's going to cut rates. Everyone is saying they are. It's a 91% chance that they do a quarter rate cut at 25 basis points. Some people are still calling for 50 basis points, but let's just hope we get a cut at all, because the Fed is pissed off. They're being shut out of the new digital on-chain economy. And here we see Charles Hoskinson confirms that he will attend the Senate Banking Committee roundtable on crypto market structure legislation. Come on in, Charles. It's good to see Charles a part of this and helping form ideas and principles as they move forward to get the market infrastructure bill done. We know Brad Garlinghouse has been a part of the Crypto Council as well. So I like seeing them bring top industry leaders into the space. And I believe Charles and ADA and Cardano are going to have a long future here. And then there's this too that just came in. The Digital Chamber was sponsoring an event last night, and unfortunately I wasn't able to attend because I've been sick. But I am turning a corner, and I'm very happy about that. But I was hoping to go and to try to olive branch and meet some of these top leaders in the Bitcoin side of the industry, to invite them to XRP Las Vegas. But I'm hoping for another chance to do that later. But nonetheless, Michael Saylor was in Washington, D.C. to help advance getting the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill done. And I believe it is going to get done. And when it does, Bitcoin, along with other assets like XRP, ADA, Solana, and XLM, and I'm sure a handful of others, HBAR, will all be selected to be in a stockpile and or reserve. And then at some point, I do expect to see the U.S. Treasury issue digital asset bonds for those assets. So that'll be a neutral way in how they can collect those things. And in fact, shout out to Eleanor Tarrant here, who says Bitcoin in the Capitol, lawmakers industry rally for the strategic reserve. And this all goes hand in hand with what the function was last night too, I believe, in support of this effort. And there was people there to note, like Senator Ted Cruz, Marsha Blackburn, Senator Bernie Moreno, and a whole bunch of others there as well, to go along with Tom Lee, Michael Saylor, Fred Thiel, and also in the room, members of newly formed Treasury Council coalition corporate executives pushing crypto's role in Treasury strategy, right? So I think there's a huge role to play there. So now this is a strong agreement that we need a strategic Bitcoin resolve or Bitcoin reserve law to ensure its longevity for America's financial future. This was a successful meeting, and they went on to say that that there's been a lot done in the digital asset space in the last couple months, and there's been a whole lot more items on the agenda for this fall, Miller said in an interview. And we know that they said that this was a huge success in getting this conversation advanced, and how they could further gather these assets without in a tax neutral way, which I have said over and over again, which is to simply issue U.S. digital asset bonds, allowing the citizens of the United States to buy these bonds, and others outside the country could buy them too if they wanted. And then they could revenue share in the return on the bond issuance, and the U.S. government could collect these assets. Eleanor Tarrant shares interesting here update. Remember when the House voted not to include the anti-CBDC bill in the Clarity Act back in July in favor of putting it into the defense spending bill instead? Well, now they just voted to retroactively combine it back into Clarity Act before sending it over to the Senate. She asked a couple of Hill sources if this is a big deal. Broad response was that it really doesn't change anything, as the Senate is working on its own bill, which already included the anti-CBDC language anyway. So they're basically mirroring what the Senate is putting together now. The response from Representative French Hill, by combining both measures and sending them to the Senate, the House continues to advance both priorities, we stand ready to work with Chair Scott and Senator Lummis on the pathway forward to get both provisions signed into law. And here is Representative French Hill right here.
Financial Services Committee Chairman French Hill is calling for crypto market structure legislation to be passed into law before the U.S. loses ground to Latin America and Europe. Chairman Hill joins us this morning. Mr. Chairman, it's good to see you. And I would ask you, what are you asking for? But all you got to say is you're asking for what's in that bill that the Senate is sitting on, right? There's a bill ready to go that would accomplish what you're asking for.
You bet, Joe. Good morning. Great to be with you. Happy 30th anniversary to the SWAC.
Thank you.
Glad to be on. Exactly right. We passed in the House in July the Clarity Act, which got 78 Democratic votes, meaning we had a strong bipartisan vote over the suspension of vote level in the House, meaning more than 290 members came together to vote for the Clarity Act, which is that market framework which will make America the most competitive digital asset nation in the world. When you combine it with the Genius Act that President Trump signed into law in July, which is the dollar-backed payment stablecoin legislation.
And you are somewhat gratified with what the Trump administration has done. There's been some progress, obviously, with the Genius Act, but what I didn't realize was how more advanced, is that the right word, for crypto use in the economy is in South America. And maybe even in Europe, in terms of legislation, where we're definitely ahead with liquidity, and we've had some good IPOs, but we're lagging without this structure in place.
That's right. We can't be competitive and lead the nation in fintech if we don't have this market framework. I told President Trump back in July that if you sign the Genius Act and you pass it, it's like passing a bill that authorizes the use of a cell phone, but you have no cell towers. You don't have the rules for custody, for dealing, for exchanging, for serving as a trader, for how you're going to actually operate a blockchain network inside the financial services industry. So we need both. They're both essential. And as you point out, the Senate is now considering the Clarity Act under Tim Scott's leadership in the Banking Committee and John Boozman's leadership in the Senate Ag Committee. And we hope that they will take prompt action on that this fall during the October and November timeframe. I'd love to see the Clarity Act pass the Senate before the end of the year.
Why is it? What's the problem? Who would bring it up and vote? Is that John Thune, Senator Thune, or what? Why? I don't understand why Republicans can't do this if they have a majority.
Well, it's being worked on. Kirsten Gillibrand in New York and Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming. Cynthia is the chair of the Subcommittee on Digital Assets, FinTech in the Senate. It's been referred to her committee. They've had a hearing. She has her own legislative ideas that are being discussed with both Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. So I do expect them to mark that bill up in the coming weeks. And I hope they'll use the Clarity Act that got 78 votes from Democrats in the House as their base text for passing their own bill.
There you have it right there. Looking to get it done by the end of the year, and it could be as early as before Thanksgiving. We'll keep an eye on it. In the meantime here, we know Vivo Power, which was doing a treasury structure. Look at what they're doing now. Vivo Power is expanding its XRP's treasury strategy by swapping mine tokens and acquiring Ripple equity. Oh. Its EV unit Tembo will accept real USD payments, offering faster, cheaper alternatives to wire transfers. Well, and turning around and buying Ripple equity, which, by the way, right now, Equities N puts out a statement and says here that Ripple would purchase up to 6% of the holdings we manage at $250 per share for anybody willing to sell them and roll it over. How about that? And they were $74 a share for both Ripple and common stock preferred stock. The option to participate in the tender offer is at the fund level, not at the individual LP level, which explains why we, as a manager of the funds, have been asked to participate. So this is interesting to me because one, Ripple sees enormous value in their own company and wants to buy their shares back at a premium, moving that up. The last buyback was like 125 or 175 a share. So Ripple definitely wants to get as many shares back as they possibly can. This is a bullish signal for me that Ripple is really excited about where they're going, and they don't want to let the shares go. They actually want them back because they believe they're going to be worth a lot more than $250 a share. So loving that for us and everyone else holding Ripple. Now, Sistine Research calls for XRP to be $33 to $55, and the bull is rumbling awake. And the next stop could take it from there to $77 to $100. And you can see the chart that they put out at the time when this did come out here. And you can see what they're looking at. And they're looking at previous, history in the chart and what it suggests. It doesn't guarantee anything, but they are not the only one of late to open up their targets for XRP as we move closer to getting the fundamental news. Whale Guru is now calling and forecasting a surge to possibly $300 for XRP. When I went inside of this, it said after a brief rally over the weekend, the crypto market entered another corrective phase. And then it goes on to say in a recent tweet, Whale Guru shared his price targets for several major tokens in the next altcoin pump. Among them was XRP received the boldest prediction with its forecast surge to $300. They predicted ETH to 25,000, Solana to 2,000, XRP to $300, Doge to $5, Sui to $10, Hype to 400. World Liberty Financial to $10 and Penguin to $10. So there are some remarkable predictions here. And I guess that Whale Guru is predicting all of these basically on how much money they believe is going to flow into the crypto market cap in general. And then how much of that gets dispersed between the tokens that they mentioned with the price points. I mean, the one thing I saw here that really kind of clicked with me is like, well, if you could see Ethereum making its way to $25,000 from 4,000, I don't think it's a stretch to see that we could get to three digits for XRP, whether it be 300 or 100. I mean, that's a hell of a jump for Ethereum. So, this is interesting to watch, and it doesn't mean that it's going to. It's just, to me, I have noticed that some of the technical analysts out here, when they show the charts, they're starting to open up their targets, not just for XRP, but for the entire crypto market. And I think it really starts to speak to the fact that it really is exciting, but we just have to wait and see how much liquidity is unlocked from the sidelines once we get the legislation needed. And then specifically for XRP, do we get the ETFs all at once, and how much demand that will be? JP Morgan's predicted $8 billion just in the first month. If we get all of those approved at once, that's insane. I love that number. And then obviously the banking charter and the Federal Reserve master account. These things could be paramount into unlocking some of these larger price point targets in order to get this done. But then again, it also may take the actual implementation and the utility coming onto the network to take it there and then make it sustainable, because that's the other important thing too. I want to get the levels where we're sustaining these higher levels, not just touching them. I want to see the level of utility on the network that helps maintain these price targets instead of just tapping it and then pulling back for the next couple of years. I definitely think we're moving into a new era of crypto, and that era is no longer speculation, but utility. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.